Wings to Fly is a children's book about gaining confidence and working to succeed, told from the perspective of a young girl who loves to play basketball. She is often left out by her teammates until she meets her guardian angel who teaches her that success takes perseverance. Wings to Fly is a great read for all children. I would highly recommend this book. If you would like to make a purchase, please click on the link in my description box below.
People felt like they were heroes. Like finally somebody had the courage to do something instead of being scared or not say anything at all.
When we first started, we had a police alert patrol, and we would patrol the community. If we saw the police brutalize anyone, we would put an end to this. Usually the police wouldn't brutalize anyone if we were on hand because we were armed, and if the police arrested the individual, we'd follow him to the jail and bail the individual out, whether he was a Panther or not. And we would gain many recruits like this, so therefore the community started to say that, well, these people are really concerned about our welfare.
I read an article in Ramparts magazine, and the article was about a young man named Huey Newton, and it described the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, which was its original name, and the for self-defense dropped later. And what he had been doing, the article said, was patrolling the police and telling them, quoting the law to them, a law book in one hand, an unloaded gun in the other. Tell the person their rights, arrest them or let them go, but do not harm this person. So it was a street patrol. I thought that was a great idea.
During the period the Black Panther Party was active in Oakland, the juvenile crime rate actually went down. I kept track of crime statistics in Oakland because I had to know the Oakland Police Department and all that stuff. That was part of my job as field marshal. And I have seen where the crime statistics for homicides, robberies, armed robberies actually went down during that period. Now, why? Why? Because these young thugs that were on the streets, when you give hope and you give another alternative to people that don't have that hope, don't have that alternative, you can produce positive results.
So the patrols were actually implemented as a measure to bring about the cessation of the murder and hostilities against black people by the Oakland Police Department. And Huey Newton and Bobby Seale decided to do that through the patrols, and had a chilling effect on the police overall.
It's a natural thing for anybody to defend themselves, especially oppressed people in this country who've been stepped on all their lives, you know. And we have a new generation, people like myself coming up, we ain't taking it. So those kind of things brought about the people not being brutalized, because people would retaliate. Because you can't come down the community shooting up people because people stick guns out the window and shoot your butt. You have to think about that now.
Is not only did Huey have a shotgun and Bobby a .45 during those days when they patrolled, but he also had a law book under his arm. So he was a law student. And when they were doing the patrols, it wasn't just they were just out there with the gun. He would take the law book and read from the law book, stipulating to the police officers that this is totally legal, given the Constitution of the United States, for us to bear arms. So we never violated the law. We were standing on the law. And the one thing that's been amputated out of our history is that law book. Nobody even know anything about it, or very seldom hear about it. But Huey Newton stood on the law. We were always articulating the law. Nobody was arrested for carrying those guns because no laws were being broken.
Now the media took a tiny thing, tiny in terms of its intention, of a man patrolling the police, and made it look like, and said that it was white-hating, extremist, bizarre behavior, a white-hating extremist organization.
From Watts to Brownsville, we fight. Capitol March in Sacramento, California, brought the Black Panther Party more national prominence as well as growth and respect. East Bay legislator Don Mulford sought to achieve the elimination of the Black Panther police patrols.
Mr. Mulford, your bill, you held your bill back to strengthen it. What do you have in mind?
Well, first, it's my intention to make it a felony to bring a loaded weapon into the state capitol. I think that the incident points out that, shockingly, that the laws are inadequate, but also serves to emphasize the fact that the laws are inadequate to protect the innocent public when bands of armed people, let me make it perfectly clear, this has nothing to do with any racial incident, because in my testimony yesterday there were 5 white groups I discussed and 1 Negro group. But when bands of armed people with loaded weapons can move about our streets intimidating and frightening citizens, then I think we should act, and we intend to act.
Sacramento, I led an armed delegation to the California State Legislature specifically to read Executive Mandate number 1 that I, Eldridge, and Huey Newton effectively contributed to the writing of Executive Mandate number 1. And that was in opposition to the California State Legislature attempting and having a bill to stop us from carrying loaded weapons. In other words, they weren't saying you couldn't carry a weapon, you couldn't carry a loaded weapon inside city limits. So that's the law and the reason I went to Capitol in the first place. I read the statement out front where Ronald Reagan was already speaking, but he was off to the side of the large, broad walkway leading up to the Capitol steps, to the legislative Capitol steps.
Well, I think it's a ridiculous way to try and solve the problems that have to be solved among people of goodwill, and there's certainly nothing that can be done in the line of goodwill when Americans have guns with even the implied idea that those guns might be directed against other Americans.
In effect, the kids left him. He was speaking to the youth of America, these 8, 9, 10, 12-year-olds. They saw us, the young white kids thought we were a gun club. They thought we had neat clothes and neat 30-06s and stuff like this. And the press followed them.
I have these Black Panthers up here with guns on the 2nd floor. Of the Capitol? Check. Wait a minute. Now, wait a minute. Right in the office. Wait a minute. Are you under arrest? Am I under arrest? Am I under arrest? You place him under arrest. Go ahead, brother. Am I under arrest? Am I? Take your hands off me if I'm not under arrest. Am I under arrest? I'm telling you to take your hands off me. Take your hands off me.
What caught me at first was Bobby Hutton. The camera was on this young guy. He was my age, and he had a shotgun, and he was leading the whole delegation. And that kind of froze me in my tracks. I said, look at this. I never seen black people with guns before, especially at a Capitol. I mean, this is the first time ever kind of stuff.
Cameras and shotguns and rifles pointing all up. We all crowded in the elevator going up. Then we come out. Then we're walking down another long hall back the other way. You just have to go this way. Well, the press is running in front of me, really. I says, which way? This is up this way. And so I got to a little gate, and a guard was standing saying, you can't come in here. And I said, what do you mean? We don't have a constitutional right to go to the spectator section? You know, and before I could finish what I was saying, the press people had jumped the thing and bumped the guard and really kind of knocked him out of the way.
I'd like to make a statement now with this respect. Statement of the Black Panther Party for self-defense on the Mulford Act now pending before the California legislature. The Black Panther Party for self-defense calls upon the American people in general and the black people in particular to take full note of the racist California legislature, which is now considering legislation aimed at keeping the black people disarmed and powerless at the very same time that racist police agencies throughout the country are intensifying the terror, brutality, murder, and repression of black people. At the same time that the American government is waging a racist war of genocide in Vietnam, the concentration camps in which Japanese Americans were interned during World War II are being re-innovated and expanded. Since America has historically reserved the most barbaric treatment for non-white people, we are forced to conclude that these concentration camps are being prepared for black people who are determined to gain their freedom by any means necessary.
They said to get the news media out, get those cameras out of here. Then it was after that, the Panthers followed in. They said get those guns out of here. Nothing happened. We weren't arrested, and went to stand on the lawn for a minute. Then went to the filling station about a block or so away, and then all of a sudden you saw all madness broke out.
Cops. Ours is legal. Yeah, well that's legal too. If yours is legal, I don't see how y'all can be no better than us.
You don't know the Constitution, right?
Not like this. Sure we do. We're well aware of the Constitution.
You have no right to take my gun away from me. You breaking the Constitution like. Right. No, that's all. He's breaking the law. Come here and arrest him.
Suddenly, they surrounded that service station, and then I told everybody we take the arrests, you know, and put your guns down. We take the arrests, and the guns were really in the car, you know, at the service station. Then they come up and told me, they said, "You're under arrest for carrying a concealed weapon." I said, "You see this weapon and you're calling it concealed. You're under arrest." I said, "Oh my God!" But I was never charged with that. I was charged with disturbing the peace of the California State Legislature.
Is this the pamphlet you're talking about?
Read it yourself.
The pamphlet says that the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense calls on the American people in general to take careful note of the racist California legislature. Why do you believe the legislature is racist?
Don't you know? You're a part of it, and you're obviously, it's a white system. It's not obvious to see where we at. So.
What do you mean?
Yeah. We just read the pamphlet and you'll see what we mean.
You say to read your pamphlet. This is the pamphlet that the man presented me with. It's called A Statement of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense on the Mulford Act, now pending before the California legislature. The Mulford Act would control the use of arms, especially loaded weapons, and would prohibit them. These men seem to have loaded weapons with them. The statement seems to indicate that these people feel that the black people have been enslaved throughout most of their lives, that the white society is responsible for this, and then they go on to say the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense believes that the time has come for black people to arm themselves against this terror, the terror of the white people, presumably, before it is too late, and the pending Mulford Act brings the hour of doom one step nearer. Do you believe everything that's in that pamphlet?
The pamphlet speaks for itself.
They jammed the guns up. They took some of the guns. They put the bullets into the chambers. So that means that you were in violation of the law. They did all kinds of things right there on the spot.
The cop was asking, "Well, what do we arrest him for?" And supposedly some guys on the squawk box hollered back, "The governor wants them arrested on any goddamn thing." And that's what happened with the Sacramento scene. Of course, I wound up serving 6 months in jail for that.
Set them straight. Stop his tricks. Keep a pig from your door. Man, it just won't do.
You had a lot of people, young people there who wanted to do something, who were because of the volatile situation that was taking place in the community. It was the high levels of police brutality all across the country, particularly in the Bay Area. So there was a desire to want to be able to do something.
Regardless of whether the Mulford Act was passed, it did get attention, not only nationally, but internationally, that there were freedom fighters in this country that were willing to go to the mat on something like that, because up to that point, if you recall, armed self-defense resistance was not the norm as far as the liberation struggle was concerned.
You know, when the Panthers went to Sacramento with those guns, you know, because of the right to bear arms. Now, where could that have come from but a classroom where they're talking about the Bill of Rights? They've studied and they've reviewed, and they knew that they could go there, that they could bear these arms, and that they would not be arrested, which is what happened. And so what we saw on the news, which really blew them up because the media did them a favor, really, was all of these young people dressed in black leather jackets with these black tams, these berets on the steps of the Capitol with these guns.
I think the misconception is that because they wore the guns, and every place you looked at that time, they showed the Panthers with their guns in Sacramento, but they were legal. I mean, they were smart enough to know all the rules and regulations about bearing arms. But that was a negative. When the press did, in fact, talked about the Panther, it was negative. Very, very few times did they talk about the providing support that they provided the community, the black community.
Somewhere there's a baby.
Let's forget about the guns that the Black Panthers took to the Capitol, because the guns didn't have bullets in them anyway. Let's forget about the militancy that people try to brainwash you with of the Black Panther Party. Let's look at the good, the sheer good. But what they did, they took that little one incident of guns and used it forever against the Black Panthers. But the Black Panther Party did some good in this city. Outstanding good.
The gun itself was not the sum total of what our movement was about. It's a period of self-defense. But they also emphasized the fact that there was self-defense against inadequate healthcare systems, about a broken down educational system, self-defense about massive unemployment. So that was also our plight and our emphasis on self-defense, trying to get rid of some of the social inequalities that we were faced with on a day-to-day level.
When people are able to really consider their circumstances, then they will. But if there are such debilitating forces at play, they cannot. I mean, if they don't have basic survival needs met. And that's why we called our programs the community survival programs.
We didn't sit back and just whine about it or cry about it. When we said we were gonna give away 10,000 free bags of groceries to people in the community, that's exactly what we meant, to the number.
It's about money, which is a euphemism for power in this world that we live in. That's what frightened them. Redistribute the wealth. Oh my goodness, that's not what we meant, that we want to take everything from someone. We wanted for the people who have nothing to have something. And that doesn't compute for people who have everything. The self-centeredness breeds lack of self-awareness. And there are those people in power. So there wasn't a way that they could soften and understand what was being said. So we kept saying it.
The party realized at an early stage it was more to the struggle than just self-defense, and we became a full-fledged organization. And the Black Panther Party became a place where people came for answers to deal with situations.
The police came in with guns to shut down breakfast programs in church basements routinely. And what came into the newspapers was, Panthers teach children hate and violence. We were feeding them eggs and toast and milk.
It's 4.9 million kids are fed annually through the government's free breakfast program. Now, the government free breakfast program was started because the Black Panther Party had a free breakfast program, and we embarrassed the shit out of them.
If you're the richest country in the world, and you're allowing, 20% of your population or 25% of your population to go without medical care, something is wrong.
We were doing sickle cell anemia testing in the community. We had free medical clinics right down the street from Merritt College. So there was a lot of activity with our social programs, and that's why people love us to this day, because we came when they needed help.
They challenged the school systems. They weren't pleased with necessarily the quality of education that was going on in the public school system, so they started their own school.
When I went to that school and saw young people, 89 years old, doing algebra, when I saw young people, 7 and 8 years old, reading fluently, I said, now this is amazing.
One of our guiding principles was to teach children how to think and not what to think. We expected a lot of them academically, and we gave them the standardized tests because we really wanted parents and other teachers to know that we were serious. We weren't a storefront. We weren't a liberation school. We weren't an after-school program. We wanted them to go on and do well wherever they went. It was the most amazing work I've ever done because we created something out of nothing.
Those who taught them were not getting a good salary, but they did it because their heart was there. Their heart was there with what the Black Panther Party was doing.
The Panther Party, sky blue and black, staying on the attack. Black Panther Party, black shades berets, and we stomping your way. Black Panther Party, 10-point plan to break free from the man. Black Panther Party.
Lloyd Questa joins us from Oakland with a live report. Lloyd?
Dennis, there's an all-night teach-in going on in the student lounge of Merritt College. Last year, a campus poll indicated a majority of students wanted this lounge named in honor of Black Panther Party leaders Huey Newton and Bobby Seale.
Seeing that they were, two brothers that was big on education, and that's what they believed in, equal education for everybody.
They had a lot to contribute to Merritt College, and they were also alumni, and me being the president of the Black Student Union, that's why I felt that they started from there, and I feel that they should be recognized.
But their plans were squashed 3 days ago when the Peralta College District Board basically pulled the plug on the idea.
And we want them to know that we're very serious about this issue and that we're not going to go home until they pass the resolution.
We went on with our rebel ceremony. We had a rebel renaming ceremony that we held probably, I think it was a week or two after they initially pulled the plug on our event. The next evening was the first Peralta Board Trustees Board meeting. And so we stayed up all night trying to organize how we were going to proceed with this issue, how we were going to continue this campaign and what we were going to do. We ended up shutting down the meeting, and they weren't able to handle any business that day, and we told them that they wouldn't be able to handle any business until they voted on our issue, and hopefully it would be in favor of the students. So it showed us that, if you're on the right side of history, if you're educated, if you have legitimacy to your claims, if you covered all your bases, that they can't stop you.
Hey, if y'all won't listen to us now, we'll stay here, we'll chant all night. We got nothing to do. We want a resolution. We'd like it now, not 60 days from now, but we'd like it now.
This is where the Black Panther Party started from. So as youth from this community, we should be pushing that legacy more than anybody else.
Merritt College was this very dynamic campus. Functioning much like community colleges should function. And people felt like something was being done and that they were involved in this situation where things were beginning to happen and courses, curriculum was being shaped. So it was a very, very powerful moment in history, one that has really lost its impact on most college campuses, and certainly community colleges do not function like that, because that early campus at Merritt College was a hotbed of activism where you were actually creating activists on that campus. So it was a very powerful moment in history that hasn't been replicated since.
Our job of a Panther today is to educate and organize the young people. And I tell Panthers, this is your role in life today. You are an elder now.
They can be inspired by what took place back then, but you can't duplicate what took place back then. Because what is done is done. So you can be inspired by it. And that's what I would tell them, to be inspired, to read, to be informed, to be educated, to be enlightened, to be excited, but to be able to come together and move forward from this moment, now, the present. That's the gift, the present.
The Black Panther Party has made its mark on American history and has made a positive mark on American history. Future generations will probably look back and say, that was a great group.
What the Panthers and other groups were talking about was giving people an opportunity to be successful, giving people an opportunity to get educated, to survive and to live in this country.
Become educated, share your knowledge, teach other young people how to go to college, how they can attain high grades. And if you get any monetary resources, share them with others. We're still too poor to keep everything to ourselves. Whatever you have, share it.
Huey said, spirit of people is greater than a man's technology. Definitely, it still holds true.
Every human being is born with immense power. It's not political power. It's not economic power. It is our own innate power, and it is wise and intelligent beyond measure.
Higher education is a key, indispensable necessity to organize and do what we did with 5,000 membership, programs all across the country, fighting in the courts, winning 95% of all our courtroom battles and all this stuff. We did this. And we were true, dedicated political revolutionaries.